How's it going, reef keepers? Just wanted to discuss one of the most common pests in the hobby, which is vermatid snails. So vermatid snails came into my tank shortly after I had this tank set up. And if you look close, you can see I've got quite a few of them, especially underneath the rock, like in shaded areas. Seems like they really love shaded areas. So right here along the bottom, especially down close to where detritus gathers. So when it comes to vermetids, apparently there are different kinds of vermetids. So there are larger ones that spew forth a web to catch detritus and pull it in as their food source. And the webs that the larger ones put out are obviously larger and can, from what I read, disturb corals. These smaller ones that I have in my tank, they definitely put out webs, but it seems like they're small enough that for whatever reason, maybe it's the kind of corals I have in my tank or the flow or something, some factor that's causing it to not bother the corals. I don't see any corals that are like, closing up and angry on a day-to-day basis because of vermetids. Now, treating vermetids, it takes all forms, depends on who you ask. Some people say take your rock all out of your tank, nuke it with muriatic acid, burn your rock, whatever, to get them off. And some people, I feel like some people ruin the hobby for themselves because they're so obsessed when they get one pest in the tank. They're like, the tank isn't perfect anymore. I'm gonna destroy it and just start over. And I never subscribed to that. I've never been a reef keeper who had a pest or a, aptasia that got in the tank or whatever and immediately panicked and was like, all right, I need to yank everything out and scrub it all down or, start over with new rock. I don't think that really helps. If you can't stand it and you're OCD, I guess maybe that's the route to go. For me, as long as you don't have the big vermetid worms, I'm focusing on the smaller ones because those are the ones that I have in my tank in abundance. I'll say a couple of things. One, they seem to wax and wane. So the population will get stronger and then it'll get weaker. And I think it's just tied to however many nutrients are in the water, right? Your tank goes through cycles with nutrients, and I can tell when the coral and algae starts growing over their mouths that like, oh, okay, I've got them on the back foot. And then sometimes they start popping up in new places and I'm like, yeah, they're making a comeback. Again, doesn't really matter where they are in their cycle. They don't seem to bother my coral. Here's one thing I'm convinced they do. When you get them in a pretty decent population size, like I have experienced them in my tank, I think that those webs that they put out create kind of a invisible carpet, so to speak, or an invisible fiber layer over the surfaces and sides of rocks. And I think that detritus, like not all detritus gets caught by their webs. Some of it settles to the rock and then the power heads blow over the rock and they can't disturb all that detritus because they've got this like invisible web layer holding them in place. So what I do, and I'm convinced I had a pretty big algae problem because of this like invisible web layer, right? So what I do is I take a scrub brush and every Friday or Saturday, I just do a quick once over of everywhere I can reach in the tank, right? Just quickly, not too close to any corals, just break all their little webs. And then I, once a week, take a power head and get real close to the rock and just, on a low speed, kind of blast selectively all the cracks, crevices, anywhere where I think detritus might be hiding and settling. And since I started doing that on a week-to-week basis, I've had no significant algae outbreak. So I'm pretty happy with that system. It's a little extra effort every week, but what's 20 minutes of effort, to have a pristine tank? It's 20 more minutes, on your weekly maintenance routine. So, that's my 2 cents on vermetids. No, they're not fun. I don't think they're attractive. People who come to look at your tank, unless they're a fellow reef keeper, they don't even know they're there. It's one of those things that it's there, so it drives you bonkers. But I would not let them ruin the hobby for you. I wouldn't advise breaking down your entire tank unless maybe you have a plethora of the bigger variety of them. But if you've just got the small ones, you know, I just haven't seen any serious negative impact on my corals. And I'm convinced at least a couple of fish, you know, nip at them. So anyway, that's all I have to say about it. Just figured I'd give my 2 cents. If you're enjoying my channel, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.